rivalry between the Navy and the Marines. Jordan and I are pretty good friends. We've gone through all of flight school in Kingsville together. We classed up back 14 months ago and pretty much been flying together.
Yeah, me and Rob, we started ground school day one in this building together and went through everything pretty much together.
107, that looks good.
Anytime I was having issues, I would go talk to Rob, and Rob would get me straightened out. So
we can keep working at Joker, but at Bingo, no kidding, it's time to knock it off and point toward home. We're creating a tactical jet naval aviator. Certainly most of the aviators coming through our program are likely to see combat, and yes, they'll be ready.
For more than a decade after Eugene Ely's pioneering flights, U.S. naval aviation stood still.
Most people would think that, hey, this is a triumphant event. This is a major demonstration. The Navy is going to fall over itself to buy aircraft. Well, that wasn't the case.
Airplanes were still made of wood and fabric and could barely hold the weight of a man, much less a heavy bomb. But from the moment he witnessed Ely's plane land on a ship, Captain Washington Chambers could imagine the future.
Chambers could look down the pipeline and see that there were tantalizing new technologies beginning to appear on the horizon. New materials like aluminum, new structures like monocoques, new fuels like high-octane gasoline. Planes were going to get faster, they were going to go farther, they could lift more. They were also going to be more deadly and more maneuverable.
By the end of World War I, the airplane had become a part of modern warfare. The British were the leaders, but the Americans were anxious to catch up. So were the Japanese, who built the world's first aircraft carrier from the ground up. The Navy embraced seaplanes for reconnaissance. But the effort involved in lowering and retrieving the planes made them useless for much else. For Chambers, it was clear the Navy was falling behind. He continued to press.
You have Chambers going and doing this incredible marketing job to a very conservative general board of the U.S. Navy, trying to sell a very new, very expensive technology, which, oh, by the way, required the building of some of the largest and most powerful warships in the world to prove that it was even viable.
For the Navy brass, carrier aviation was a distant fantasy. Nothing could replace the king of their fleet, the battleship.
Up to this point, the war plans of every nation in the world still envisioned big gun battleships, 8, 10, 12 at a time, lobbing one-ton shells at each other until one side or the other gave up, and that would determine the fate of nations.
The final push towards carrier aviation came unexpectedly, not from inside the Navy, but from an inter-service rivalry fueled by a brash Army general named Billy Mitchell. Mitchell had been in charge of all America's airplanes in World War I, an experience that forever changed his vision of war.
If you look at World War I, it was just a horrific experience. You had trench warfare, people killed by the thousands and hundreds of thousands. And you had people like General Billy Mitchell, who looked upon the airplane as a way that could change warfare and could get warfare out of the trenches.
Mitchell's determination matched his arrogance. He wanted to consolidate all military air power under one service, an independent Air Force under his command. Mitchell set out to do something big, something never done before. If the whole world believed that airplanes could not kill ships, well, then he would prove them wrong. In July of 1921, he orchestrated a show for decision-makers in Congress. Mitchell's airplanes first destroyed several old battle cruisers. Then came the most important test. Each plane carried a newly invented 2,000-pound bomb. Their target, a captured German battleship, long deemed unsinkable. This was a triumph for Billy Mitchell, and it achieved the exact opposite of what he wanted.
It triggered in Navy leadership a decision to look at, hey, we have this air power advocate, General Billy Mitchell, and if we don't embrace aviation and look at aviation as an adjunct to the fleet, then we may have an independent Air Force on our hands and also may have a Navy that's greatly diminished.
Within a few months, the Navy regained the lead, converting a cargo ship into an aircraft carrier christened the Langley. The age of American carrier aviation was born. The Langley operated for 2 years in an experimental role, testing aircraft and training pilots.
We like to talk about the golden age of naval aviation in the 20s, where we had wooden airplanes and iron men. These were people who were willing to literally bet their lives to go ahead and bring this technology and this new kind of warfare to the forefront. It was hard, and it was dangerous, and a lot of naval aviators died. And this is really where the reputation of naval aviation began to be built. The naval aviators of the interwar period are very much characters out of the movies. Yeah, they had silk scarves. Yeah, they had leather jackets and flying helmets. Yeah, they had steely-eyed looks, and they were handsome, and they did daring deeds.
They were, for lack of a better term, the macho men of their time. The guys that had no fear, just as they were confident in their own capabilities, set apart from those that preferred to keep their 2 feet on the ground.
I guess the word is probably ego. Probably ego. It was probably what got me into it. I want to be a big shot. The image of a naval aviator was a red convertible, top down, with a beautiful blonde alongside. Who could want anything else?
Every day you're operating in 3 dimensions.
You don't have time to
call it breaking out the book and read and see what the problem is and fix it. You just don't have time to do that. So if you don't have things memorized cold, you can't put them into action quick enough.
We make our own mistakes and tell the plane to do the wrong thing sometimes. If things go wrong, they can go really wrong.
Some days you're just on, some days you're not. Hopefully we'll peak when we head to the boat and have a good day. We'll practice. We're well rested. We're ready to go, and we're at the top part of the game, and close to being as good as we can be.
They're going to move it in 500-pound increments when you give them the signals. So palm up like that, and then the palm down, horizontal is move it down.
I'm having a feeling that I'm going to look and be like, wow, I have to land in that little spot, and that boat's not as big as I thought it was going to be. But trying to keep those out of the head right now and just focus on what we were taught to do.
This will be a completely new experience for me and most all the other students. We have no fleet experience. It's going to be loud, it's going to be busy. I mean, they've been showing us all week of people killing themselves behind the boat, crashing left and right. It's all learning points you can take from. Remember, don't do that. I don't want to turn into a fireball. I'd like to land and come home at the end of this. The nerves crank up. It is completely foreign, and probably the most exciting thing we've done in our lives to this point. So.
In the mid-1920s, the Navy had just one small carrier, the Langley. Airplanes had become sturdier, the pilots better trained. But still unresolved was how to use all of this in war. Amid the wavering, one figure emerged to take the lead. His name was Admiral Joseph Mason Reeves.
Every move of these naval aircraft has a definite purpose and has the single aim of achieving a fighting fleet.
His nickname is Billy Goat Reeves because he had this beard and goatee that he wore. He's a hard charger, a football player at the Naval Academy, studied tactics, and he is a convert to naval aviation.
Reeves chafed at naval doctrine that confined planes to reconnaissance. He was after a weapon as lethal as the battleship.
For him, it very quickly became, how can we use this aircraft carrier not as a support weapon, but as an offensive weapon, as the offensive centerpiece of a naval force.
Admiral Reeves understood, even with Langley, that you had to maximize the number of planes that could be launched from that flight deck. Bringing the most intense concentration of firepower onto a target as possible.
In 1928, Reeves got a platform that matched his ambitions.
The United States takes two incredible hulls of battle cruisers they were building, and they put all of their tonnage into these two ships, and they produced two of the most beautiful, powerful, and in fact the fastest warships in the world, the Lexington and the Saratoga.
Reeves loaded the two carriers with nearly 100 planes each, and within a year, he overcame the seemingly impossible, launching and landing dozens of airplanes in rapid-fire succession.
It's a jigsaw puzzle. It's like baseball, it's a game of inches. You can pick a million different cliches, and I don't think any of them really accurately capture what happens on a flight deck with dozens of airplanes, some launching, some recovering.
There was this constant ballet going on, choreographed by the deck department, the air department, literally hundreds of young men using their bare hands and muscles to push 90 or 100 airplanes.
New and better planes were in the pipeline. The Curtiss SBC-4 Helldiver could carry a 1,000-pound bomb almost 600 miles. The next challenge, delivering the bombs with more precision. And for that, they invented dive bombing.
Dive bombing is a technique that was developed by the Navy because it provided a very accurate way of bombing a pinpoint target. And ships are pinpoint targets. The planes come in at about 10,000 feet and then pushes over into a steep dive. And when I say steep, meaning going straight down.
Inside of the cockpit, they often flew with their canopies open. As the airplane would push over, the visceral feeling of being lifted out of your seat and hanging from your straps, looking through a very simple reflector gun sight. Meanwhile, the ship that you're aiming at, well, it's a moving target. It's snaking, it's circling, it's changing its speed. Then at about 2,800 to about 1,500 feet, which isn't very high at all, you would release the bomb. And then immediately pull in excess of anywhere from 4 to 6 or 7 Gs to come out of that dive.
Naval aviation had gained power, reach, numbers, and precision, but was still untested in battle. Starting in 1929, the Navy began a series of war games called fleet problems that put Reeves's theories to the test. None proved as prophetic as the vast Pacific exercise known as Fleet Problem 13. On February 7, 1932, the carriers Lexington and Saratoga peeled away from the fleet and sailed towards Hawaii. 152 planes were dispatched to attack Pearl Harbor with dummy bombs. In the mock assault, they pounded the airfields and port facilities.
And why it's so important is because it showed that the carrier could operate independently and operate as its own task force and did not need to have the battle line there for support. And it showed the offensive firepower of the aircraft carrier.
The Navy minimized the risks of an attack by carriers. For the next decade, the old strategy stayed largely unchanged.
These are tough times. This is the Depression. We had existing battleships. They were there. They were paid for. We knew exactly how to employ them, and they worked.
But Fleet Problem 13 did not go unnoticed. Across the Pacific, the Japanese studied it closely.